Hello, everyone, and hi, Brendon. We're now live. Whoever survived the very long 30-second countdown is now here.
We
I
made it
was
through the
like,
break.
Jesus. Yeah. Guys, very welcome to the 51st episode of Art Heroes podcast. And I'm here with Brendon Isaiah Bengtson. And everyone, please say hi in the chat if you're here with us live. And also say where you guys are from. Because I know we've got like a really mixed, geographically, very mixed audience. So yeah, so it'd be cool to know where you guys from. And as we go, feel free to ask questions, and if you have any comments, also feel free to drop them right here. Brendon, as we always get started, like, do you want just to introduce yourself? Because it might be just easier if you go ahead, because we introduced you a little bit in the intro. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. Brendon Isaiah Bengtson. My life and my passion is video game character art. I live, eat, and breathe it, and dream it most of the time. I've been working in the industry for, oh God, I don't know. I don't even remember. I don't think my memory goes back that far. But professionally, I've been in about 7 or 8 years professionally. But before that, it was early Corel Painter and Photoshop and
Right.
Bryce 3D and Lightwave and all those you have to use math to create physical or digital objects. So I've been kind of playing around with 3D for quite a while. But yeah, that's me. And I'm currently a lead character artist at Crystal Dynamics, working on the Marvel's Avengers game. It's
awesome.
Highlight of my career, man. It just to be able to work on such iconic characters is it's a testament to working hard and just going for your dream. I'm incredibly blessed to be able to land that opportunity. So
awesome. I mean, like, I'm excited for you because I'm a huge fan, and I'm really, I just like really curious about like the whole process and what kind of brought you there. So and that's actually one of the first things that I wanted to ask you. Like, we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. So do you have like a magical brush or something that people can grab and so that they also can start like working on Avengers?
Absolutely. I have the brushes. There's like 3 brushes that are like the magic brushes that do everything for me, and I don't no, there's no magic brush. There's nothing. You know what? Actually, I take that back. My magic brushes is the damn standard brush,
okay,
brush, and the clay buildup. Those are my and the move brush.
Amazing.
Those 3 right there. If you have those, you can do it.
Okay, that's great. I mean, that's a great insight. I'm going to take a note of this and make sure that everybody hears like that. They're
get
definitely
those. They're actually for free with the package. You can get them right there.
Okay, amazing. But like, on the serious note, like, actually, how did you get started? Like, let's start from there.
Sure. I so early on in out of high school, I really wanted to actually let's go back. The first moment that I wanted to be a character artist was the first time I saw Toy Story. Like way back when it came out. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to work in computer graphics and I want to make characters. Like all the way back. So I've been fortunate enough to say, like, this is my target. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it whatever it takes. So back in late 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't really a whole lot of education for video game art and that kind of stuff. So I basically took any kind of digital art class I could. So like I took like Photoshop classes and Corel Painter, like I said earlier, and from there I uprooted myself from Sacramento. And I moved myself to San Jose, California, where I am now. And I found a college that gave a full fully accredited bachelor's degree for animation and modeling. So I
Right.
went through that. That's a whole nother story. Art education is a whole nother story we can touch on later if you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So then I was there from 2003 to 2007. 2007 I graduated, and believe it or not,
I'm ready.
those colleges may tell you we will get you a job right out of school.
Okay.
Don't believe them. It's all about you. It's all about your work. It's all about your portfolio. That's what gets you the job. Anywho, so yeah, after that, I actually worked in the medical industry for a little while. I was doing medical modeling for like facial reconstructive surgery,
Oh wow.
oral
Okay. So
surgery. We were doing facial studies with like different points and growth patterns and planes and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then I went to my first Blizzcon in 2013. Finally
wow.
got a chance to go to Blizzcon, and like at the moment I walked in the door, I was like, "Oh my god, I got to get back into games, man! Got to get back into games." So from there, I spent about a good couple of years just working on, reteaching myself the game pipeline and learning ZBrush and Substance Painter and Designer and the whole PBR workflow, all of that. And then from there, I worked on a couple of indie projects. There's the big question is like, how do you get in? Hey, I want to be in that party, man. How do I get in there?
Yeah.
And a lot of, for everybody, it's different, right? So it's just about your journey and what your opportunities are and what your skill levels are and, who you are in contact with and what lands in your plate. So I was fortunate enough to land a couple of like small little like indie projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some experience there. And then I actually got hired at Apple doing modeling and rendering for the apple.com. So like all of those images on there. That was fun, but it wasn't character work. So then I needed to. I was like, I got to get back into character work. Got to. So then I got a gig down at Sony, San Diego, at a scan studio and worked there for a little while. So they did. They took head scans and body scans and motion capture, and they basically took orders from other studios and then took the scans, cleaned them up, and then sent them back to the other studios. So I was able to spend that time just cleaning up head shapes left and right for months and months. So that was a really, really cool opportunity. I highly suggest, if you're interested in character art, get yourself some actual like real scans of heads and look at them and study them and what shapes are consistent, right? It like just by looking at the actual shapes of a head scan, you learn a lot. Like I had no idea how to sculpt an ear before that. And then I sculpted probably about 150 ears after that during that time. I know how to sculpt an ear now. By the way,
I think that's a great tip. Honestly. And nowadays it's pretty easy to get your hands on like actual scans, cleaned and raw. So there's
absolutely
plenty of opportunities to play with that.
I still do that. I still like I'll go on to what is that store? 3D scan store?
Yeah, 3D scan store.
And they have like 50% off sales all the time. Like I'll just go in there and just grab some stuff. 50% off, and I'm like, oh, that's how they do it. Oh, or I'll go in and grab like scans of cloth. Like they'll go in there and have like jeans and shirts and jackets and stuff, and then you get to look at like actual real pieces of cloth, so you can practice. You can even take it and resculpt it just by looking at it. So all kinds of, anytime you can get your hands on realistic stuff, it's good for studying. So
for sure. So what happened after working with like scans? Did you how did you end up back in the video games? I'm like really curious now.
Well, I mean, all those scans were for video game pipeline. So it was head scans for I think I was working at MLB The Show 2018 at the time. So it was all sports figures too. So
Mhm.
the athletes would come in and they would get their head scans, and then we would clean up and resculpt the heads and then send it off to the rest of the team. So from there, I was actually fortunate enough to get a gig as a character artist at Visceral, EA Visceral.
Mhm.
We all know what happened to Visceral. After that, it unfortunately closed down halfway in. Well, not halfway, but we were
Yeah.
working on a Star Wars project, and that got canned. So that was a little hurtful, but
Mhm. So you
business is
were
business.
there at the time?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. I actually was I was out sick that day. That was not a text. I was expecting to get from my buddy character artist there. That was
So,
interesting.
so this is very interesting. You know, like they think those stories, like not. I mean, they're kind of a. You know, they kind of exist, and people know that they exist. Maybe like very young artists don't know that this exists, but like it's like it's a pretty volatile industry. Maybe video games a little bit less than visual effects,
Yeah.
but still, these things happen. So can you share like what actually happens, like why this happens, or maybe what happens to actual artists if a project gets canned, and like from your experience in the industry, how frequently does shit hit the fan?
Well, I mean, if you're talking day-to-day work, like even in a solid studio, like shit hits the fan every day.
Oh
You just
yeah,
have
yeah,
to figure
yeah.
out how
No,
to do
I
it.
mean like
Yeah,
like not like small shit, but
yeah.
like
Like medium size, or
like
large,
medium,
whatever.
like yeah, and like a
Yeah.
lot of it.
It just like business is business, and the biggest thing you can't do is take it personal. Like it's just the business decisions happen, and sometimes it's regardless of artist or staff best interest, and you just got to swing with it. That's the way the world works. So the best thing that you can do is just be prepared, right? Like that's why you should always continue. If you're an artist, or if you are an art person, whether it's like VFX, or if you're a tech artist, or if you're any animation, like do personal work. Personal work is the best way to stay prepared and to stay on the cutting edge. Our industry, the video game industry, is always changing, and it's always adapting. It's if you're not adapting, you're dying, basically. So like there's a lot of times when you can't, maybe in your job you have to do A, B, and C over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you get really good at A, B, and C. But like company X is hiring for DEF. How do you have time to do that stuff? That's where personal work comes in. Like you still have to, like, you use that time to expand your own horizons and look into different avenues of ideologies and how you want to do things, or like so personal work is super super important. It's not
Absolutely
more
agree.
important than your health. It's not more important than your family. It's not more important than breathing. But it is still really important. So being prepared and using personal time to kind of stay on top of things is probably one of the best ways you could, because you never know. Like I had no idea
Yeah,
that studio was around forever,
I
and
know,
then one day
right?
they're just like, all
Yeah.
right, see ya.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is crazy, but I think, it's just like really thank you for saying this, because I think it's always very important to keep this in mind as an artist, that we are creating art, but this is business and we're part of
Yeah.
like big business decisions. So it's really not always on us. What like there are things that we can control, for example, how good we are, or like what we do with our free time, and how prepared we are for like the next move strategically, because the project at some point will finish, and it's the nature of it that you
We're
have to
not
move
entitled
on.
to anything. We're workers, and that's how it is. It's been that way since day one. Like if you look back at the Renaissance, and the sculptors, that were working in real studios, like under Michelangelo or whatever. Like things happen all the time, and you have to pay the bills, and you just have to kind of roll with the punches. So
That is so true. Very interesting. So basically for you from the day when the project wrapped up, well, let's call it wrapped up.
Yeah, it wrapped. Yeah, that's for sure. It's done.
Just like, yeah, it was done. So what did you do then?
So from there, it's all about capitalizing on opportunities as well. Like it just, if you're in the right place at the right time with the right skills, and say the right words and everything lines up, as much as you can prepare yourself for that, the better. So being that, I was at, it was kind of a high profile studio closure, right? Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, Visceral's closed! No! Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" So, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, I love that studio," and it's just been part of my gaming, forever, and all that. So, like, I actually, it was crazy. I had like, I think 20 different companies contact me and ask me if I was interested in a gig. Just because it was such a high profile closure and there was so much buzz around it closing, it actually created way more opportunities for me.
Wow,
And
how interesting.
yeah, it was crazy. I had, dude, in 2 weeks, I had 8 interviews. It was insane. But through all that, I was fortunate enough to land at Crystal Dynamics. And Crystal Dynamics has been one of the staples in the industry for a very, very long time. They do amazing work. It's always super top quality work and pushing the envelope of where the industry is in real time graphics and that kind of stuff. And that's my gig, right? I love hyper realistic, pushing realism and that kind of stuff. I love that type of style. So it worked really well. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to come work on Avengers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah." So it was
So
really
pretty
fun.
much, have you pretty much been working on Avengers from day one?
Yeah, I came in. I've been on Avengers for 3.5 years now. And I
Wow.
wasn't even there at the beginning. It went on for longer than that. But I mean, that's, it launched almost, 6 months ago. So, and we're still continuing to put out content regularly. So there's still
Yeah.
a lot of work to do. You guys can actually see, I had the distinct privilege and honor beyond anything, even more than just working on Avengers, to model Black Panther. It was
Right.
such just, I like when I came to the studio and they were like, "Hey, we want you to, work on a character, which one do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I can, do this one or that one or this one." And they're like, "Hey, you want to do Black Panther?" And I was all,
Really, yeah.
"Yes."
Yes,
So that
please.
just, the first trailer just dropped not too long ago, and I seeing some of the react. Well, everybody has an opinion of
Yeah.
Avengers and MCU, right? And some of them are positive and some of them are opinionated, and which is okay. Everybody has their own opinion. But the fanfare from the Black Panther suit, it was just, uh, it, overwhelmingly positive. I sit there, I got tears, man. I was like, blast, be blast, so cool. Oh my God, I'm such a nerd. So,
So
yeah.
yeah. So like this is really crazy and very interesting. I'm wondering, like, how does it look like from a character art perspective working on such iconic characters? Because as you said, everyone will have an opinion
Yeah.
because it's such a high profile like work. There will be definitely people who are not liking
Yeah.
it or who would like it differently. There is, like the public consciousness about these characters.
Yeah.
Somebody imagined it differently. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like it's
Oh, his
just
hair's
very,
lame.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah, yeah.
God.
Different,
But
different.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what's great about our industry is everybody has their opinion and everybody's entitled to it, and that's awesome. Like if you don't like something, cool, that's cool. Maybe we'll make something better, or like other people may like it, but that's just the world, and that's how diversity is so cool. Like everybody's got a little bit of different opinion. But when it comes down to like how do you deal with that, with criticism and all that kind of stuff, and the biggest thing I found, specifically working uh on IPs, right? Whether it's Star Wars or Avengers or whatever it is to just know, like, and respect what character that you're working on, do as much justice to what the idea of the character is, even if you have a
Okay.
new spin on it, like as long as it's still true to the nature of that particular character, that's the most important thing. If it's off character, is what we call it a lot of times. Is off character is a term that we use to either say the essence of what you're looking at for this particular character is not what the general consensus of what this character is, or you have a static model and you say this is what the character looks like, and further on down the animation, the VFX and all that, it doesn't look like that. That's off character. But as
Yeah.
long as you're respecting what the idea of the character is and staying true to roots in a form of fashion, and it fits within that universe, then the rest is just artistic interpretation. Big words. I'm not a big words guy.
Right. So no, I love that. But like basically, I see that a lot of artists, even outside of studios, like as a matter of like personal projects, create their interpretations of I don't know, everyone from Marvel's universe and like all the superheroes and everyone, like name any character, there will be a bunch of interpretation. Do you think there is something that is there's a better way, or it's just like give it your own spin, or like is there a replication? Like what's your tip on how to make like a successful character that goes along the, I would say, the trend?
I think there's a couple of different things. If you're doing like kind of your own spin on a character, fan art, I guess you could say, whether it's an established
exactly.
IP,
Fan art is the better way.
or even somebody else's concept art, right? That's technically fan art, really. I mean, kind of, we can get into the bells and whistles of that, but it's just understanding the ideology of what the character is and respecting that. Out of that, you can do all kinds of different things. Like you see stylized Batmans all over the place, or like stylized, or something. The iconic is one particular style, and somebody will take it in a completely different way, but still respect the essence of the characters. Like when Last of Us 2 came out, right? That was a big splash in the industry, and the character work from Naughty Dog is just top notch, man. Those guys are awesome down there. But what was really cool is that they even though you look at their characters and it's like, okay, it's not a superhero, it's not like super bright colors and capes and all this crazy stuff, iconology to like show this character is different from this character. It's kind of like it's plain clothes, really. And what makes the character is their actions and their reactions and their story and all of that. So it sometimes can be difficult to make versions of that if you want to take your own spin on it. But what I saw, which I thought was awesome, was that people would take something that was super realistic and put a stylized spin on it. Like I've seen a lot of them, and they were so cool, man. And that's like how you take and put your own type of spin onto something while also respecting the IP or the character or the essence of what that character is. I saw a lot of that actually when the new God of War came out, right? You see like a lot of people like were doing like stylized Kratos, and I was like, dude, that is so cool.
Yes. And so for Avengers, for example, like what was for you like the most complicated part of like working on the character? Was it like the interpretation part? I mean, I get like I guess like technical aspect is just like any other character. So
actually,
what made it challenging?
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. Because a lot of times, on a big IP, you have concept artists that will do all of the concepting for you. So they'll come up with all the designs and all of the design aspects that you need to do as a character artist. I think the most difficult part, honestly, is after your work, right? Is making sure that, after you create the static mesh of the character, that it lives on through the rest of the pipeline in respect to what the beginning idea of it was, right? So like, what does it look like when it gets rigged? Are the proportions correct? Is he moving correctly? Do I need to, change the way that I model the base mesh so that when he moves, like his arms are doing the right things, or like, you know, his neck doesn't collapse or something. And then making sure that that character looks good in animation, and then, you know, post effects and lighting and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of the most difficult things, especially in a large scale production, is making sure that after you complete the static mesh, that mesh lives on in respect to the initial design and the initial mesh.
Right. And so a follow-up question here for all the younger artists who are listening to us right now: what's the best way to practice this when you're working outside of the studio, when you're freelancing and you're not part of like a large project? How do you make sure that you're prepared to do this type of stuff? Like, is there like a checklist, like how to bulletproof your character? To make...
I mean, honestly, all of our work is like, I think I know how to do it, because none of us have made the characters we've made until we've made them, right? So that means that the problems that you face in the character that you're making, you don't know how you can solve those until you figure out how to solve them, right? So like, just knowing how to solve issues is 90% of the battle, is just how to solve issues. So for people that may not be, you know, in a large studio that can have daily debates around the water cooler with your tech artists and your animators, actually what I did was early on, I tried to be really involved with the art community in general. You know, I would be in like competitions, like ArtStation competitions, or gosh, what was it back in the day? There was old competitions that used to happen all the time. I forgot the names of them, but just being active in the community, that's like the biggest thing. If you're not in a studio and you need help outside of what your particular goal is being active, right? And so maybe you have a group of buddies that you're like, hey, maybe one of those guys is a tech artist, or one of those girls is a tech artist, you know? And you're saying, hey, I got this character and I've been practicing, and if you want to use them to do your work, you're more than welcome. Then it now becomes this cool collaborative process between you and this other person, just on personal work, right? I've actually done that many times where I've talked with riggers and tech artists and stuff, and I was like, hey man, you want to use this, go ahead, it's like, practice. I would love to see what my dude does when you move them around and stuff, right? The only thing I ask is, say, hey, look, give me some feedback, and I would love to see the work when it's done, to know how I can better myself. So I would say, if you're not in a studio and you don't have access to those types of things, get a close-knit group of friends or buddies or colleagues or whatever, and just share, right? And that's a great way.
I love that. I think that's a great tip. And I actually love two things about what you just said. Like, number one is community and being active, because yes, there are so many challenges. And like, actually at Art Heroes, we host 2 annual challenges. One of them is coming up in June. So I mean, like, I'm gonna hijack the airspace now by saying that we already have like the one of the big prize for the challenge, and this year it's going to be an actual 3D printer. So this is quite cool. But yeah, I agree that challenges are. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like I will probably ban you from winning anyway.
I know, right? I might just do it just so I can. I mean, so here's the other thing too, is that, like, even if, let's say you look at these challenges, right, and you say, oh my God, there's no way I could win. It's not about winning. It's about like getting yourself in a project and having deadlines and working with other people that are working on similar things, right? That's the true benefit of those things.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I always get impressed, like, the several times when we hosted challenges, it's like, 300-500 submissions and so many great artworks. How can this be possibly created in like 5-7 days? But the reality is that when we are under like certain pressure, we do things that we couldn't believe that we could do. So this is true. It's just like giving yourself another push. And another thing I really like is the collaborative projects. we actually had I just recently saw an example of this, like in our community, when somebody did a character and another artist did hair.
Oh yeah, that hair.
This is like
hair.
yeah, because not everybody works with all the stages. Like hair is really complicated, and rigging is really complicated. So yeah, I'm just like, guys, if anyone who's listening here is looking for collaborations, feel free to, for example, post a story on Instagram and tag Art Heroes. I'll share it to our wider community. If there is no one in there from your friends, maybe we can find your collaboration. So we can definitely use that. So I mean, like, I would love to see people using more of, like the synergies.
Yeah. And honestly, like, one of my things when I was like trying to come up in the industry was like, oh man, I need to be in contact with like all those great artists, and I need to be there, and I need to like do all this stuff. But it's like, it's not about that. It's about the people that are around you right now. It's your peers. Like, working with your peers, they're not always going to be your peers. They're going to be your colleagues in like 5 years, and they're going to be the people that like vouch for you at company XYZ, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this guy, oh yeah, I know this guy from or I know this girl from a long time, and she's amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, well, let's hire that person. So use those communities now, because it pays dividends later. Dividends.
Yeah, that's true. And like, I think we tend to underestimate that each other in a way. It's like people you go to college with, right? Like, you're like, oh well, that doesn't really matter, but then 10 years later you end up in the same community, just because you're still in the same industry.
Don't be a jerk to Joe, because Joe will work in the industry, and it always happens where Joe is working at the company that you want to work with and knows the hiring manager. So don't be a jerk to Joe, okay?
I love that. Actually, we've got a hiring question here from our community. So somebody's curious if Crystal Dynamics hire interns, and if there is an opportunity to join in this capacity. And just I think it's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. It's always great, and internships are amazing. They're great opportunities to get your kind of foot in the door and to get an idea of what a big studio life is actually like. We have hired interns previously. I don't think we do it on a regular basis, but I know usually around like the GDC time. Actually, one of our character artists who's absolutely amazing, we got as an intern from GDC, and she's a part of our hardcore part of our team. So it works. You just have to be in the right place at the right time, and the right opportunity has to be there. So
can you decipher GDC for everyone who is not?
Oh, I'm sorry. GDC is a Game Developers Conference. It's typically a big game developers conference.
Yeah. So I don't actually know what if everything is still on, like 2021.
I think they're trying to do it digitally. Last year it was right around March is when things went downhill in the world. So they canceled last year.
I know that they did, but I was not like really on track for this year, so I don't know.
I think they're doing it digitally this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, I mean, it's such a big conference and a big entity that like and a lot of people go, and a lot of people get a lot of great stuff from there. It's a really good event. I've been plenty of times. The parties are awesome as well.
Yes, I know.
Go and have a couple beers and hang out with people. That's where the gold is.
Of course.
Or have a seltzer water if you don't drink.
Yeah. I mean, networking is underrated sometimes, but when we're online, like, we're like, oh well, maybe it doesn't worth it, seems like a lot of money, or it doesn't worth, maybe it doesn't worth the trip, but eventually it probably does. And actually we have sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the other great one besides GDC is the ZBrush conference. It's the ZBrush Summit. If you have a chance, any year, like if you guys don't know the ZBrush Summit, watch it every year. It's amazing. So it's a big shout out to them.
And last year it was actually digital. So hopefully this year's, I think actually for ZBrush Summit, like the pandemic year made it even at least like a little bit better in a way, because the sculpt off became accessible to so many more people. And that's actually another competition that I think is definitely worth mentioning, because
that
it's
competition
just,
is crazy.
yeah.
I got invited one year, and just sitting in that room with that much talent, man, I was like, imposter syndrome like nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny from like at Art Heroes, we joke that all our instructors well, they've all been and they all like won at some point, like different years. So we definitely love the ZBrush Summit, and yes, it was great. It was great. So we've got also another question here. So
Sure.
Since we're talking about networking, do you think skill is more important, or actually who you know?
This goes to actually one of the points that I always make when I'm kind of giving advice, is that it's really all about your portfolio. Your portfolio can be a blessing and a curse. It's not necessarily always about like, can you talk the talk? It's about, can you walk the walk, right? And it's the portfolio that can either work against you or work for you. Which is, again, it's good and bad. So if you have amazing work in your portfolio, it's going to do work for you all the time, and people will call you. When you post a great piece, it's amazing, like the opportunities that you get. So like it's portfolio first, 100%, 100% portfolio. Because if you can't show that you can do the work, you could talk up a wall and still, you're not able to do the job. Like
absolutely.
So networking is a way to get your work in front of more people.
Yeah.
But it's still about your portfolio. And that's why personal work is paramount.
Absolutely. So what's your personal take? Do you only publish like pieces that you're absolutely proud of, and do you take down pieces when you kind of change your opinion about them, or you just keep everything? What's your take?
That's very, very, it's tough. And it's one of the things that I'm still learning today, which is like, sometimes you have to kill your darlings, right? That's the saying, is like, you work so hard on a piece and you've learned so much and you put so much heart and soul into it, and it no longer represents your quality bar as it is right now. And a lot of times you have to look at your work objectively and say, does this represent where I am now in my skill set? No, it doesn't. Take it off. Right? It's much better to have 6 or 7 pieces or 4 or 5 pieces, depending on where you are in your career, that are super strong, than to have 20 amazing pieces and 3 terrible pieces, right? Or not like, last gen pieces, I can say, right? Because it's your work as a body on the whole that is the judgment of your skill, right? So if you have amazing pieces, but then you have a couple pieces in there that are like, I don't know, then that's part of the evaluation of you as an artist. So I would say prune it all the time. Like if you're continuing to move forward, I just took like 5 things out of my portfolio last week.
Okay.
Yeah, it hurt, but it was like, you know what? It doesn't represent where I'm at anymore. And I look at the stuff that's in my portfolio now, and I'm like, that's old, but I just keep it there because I like looking at it.
Okay.
So
wow.
prune it.
Yeah. And great. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's just really because everyone is evolving all the time. I mean, if you're evolving, let's be optimistic, right? That everyone is evolving. Yeah, then just like why show where you were like as a 10-year-old or as a 20-year-old if you're like 20 years ahead. So
I think the other piece of advice too is like, it's very difficult to objectively look at your own work and see it as a whole and say, look, this is not really that good, or this is really awesome, you should do more of this stuff. So what you should do is you should establish like within your peer group, or if actually what I did was I reached out to a couple of professionals early on in my career, and made connections with them, and showed my portfolio a lot and asked a lot of people with more developed eye to say, which ones do you think are the strongest ones and which ones do you think are not strong? And then even from that, I could start to delineate like what things don't look good and what things look good and why they look good. Right?
Yeah.
So get yourself a group of people, or even a couple that can look at your portfolio and give you that objective feedback of to say, hey, this is working, this is not, and then think about pruning that way.
Yeah, that's also a great tip. I think, like everybody could do it like at least like once a year. Just if you're like moving in your career further, just make sure you review it from time to time.
Yeah.
And we've got another interesting question here. So what are the 3 most important things one needs to learn to begin through the artist career? Let's see what you think.
Okay. The first is design. I think is the biggest thing. Is learn how to develop your eye to see good design. From that, you can apply good design to almost any art medium, right? Whether it's graphic art or 3D character art or realistic character art or stylized character art or even environment art. There's design everywhere. And the design aspects of art are universal. They're like, photographers use it. Graphic designers use it. And it's the same principles. Learn what makes good design and then apply good design to your medium. That's the biggest thing. I actually see, there's a lot of people that you're like, oh, I want to be a character artist, or I want to work in video games, or I want to work in film, and but like they work in a different job at first, right? And there's like, oh, maybe I'll just do graphic design first. The people that develop their graphic design are typically really, really good at any art after that. It's because they develop their sense of design and what makes good design. And then you just apply that to whatever medium that you're using. So design, art design, use shapes, right? So small, medium, large shapes, use patterns, use, I don't know.
Like colors even.
Yeah, all that stuff is super important. Silhouette, right? Well, look at I can go on, but you can.
I got the idea. Yeah, and like if design is number 1, would you say that any specific, let's say, app, like a software app, would be an essential, like as of number 2, number 3, or it's let's say anatomy goes first.
I would from there, I think any artist should be design first, whatever your medium is. So then you get a little bit more granular and say, okay, what does a character artist need? After that, it's anatomy for sure. And I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. Is like, practice your anatomy, know your anatomy. From that, that's your base. That's your armature, right? Like that. If you don't have that, you can't build great stuff on top of it. It just, you can polish anatomy.
Got it. Yes,
100% anatomy.
Okay. And then like I guess if it's, let's say, character art, then I guess it's like you have to do ZBrush, or you just have to be comfortable like actually making characters, right?
Yeah, I think after that, going into more character specific stuff, I would say right now there's a pretty big divide between realistic character artists and stylized character artists. There's very few people that can do both really well. So I would suggest figure out which style that you like more and which one keeps you up at night. Which one like do you dream about? Which one is like you look at something, you're like, oh, I want to do that.
So you're realistic.
I'm 100% realistic, man.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that looking at your portfolio. I mean, like I'm gonna pull this out for people who are watching us, and like you just see like all the like the Avengers. Sorry if I took you by surprise.
No. Yeah, this is Yeah, so for me it's realistic art.
Yeah,
And so then, decide which one that you want to go down, which road you want to go down, and then do that, you know?
yeah,
Um so some of this stuff, so this is some of my Avengers work. The important thing to note, like for portfolio stuff, for kind of big projects, is that it's a huge team effort. And whatever ends up on screen is usually a product of many different people's work. So it's
yeah,
always proper to say, hey, like it's a huge team effort. So um, yeah,
yeah,
so realistic
yeah.
stuff for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And, I actually wanted to go back a little bit on the topic that we touched in the very beginning. And this is art education. And
Mm,
I know you've got an opinion here. And I think, many people would like to hear what you think and what's your experience. And I
sure.
agree that there's like a lot of inflated
Yeah.
like expectations.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Education, art
yeah,
education.
the art education, like
You
how do
ready?
you approach it? What do you think? Yeah, I'm ready. I'm all ears, like just shoot.
So there's a lot of opinions when it comes to formal art education in colleges and that kind of stuff. So my biggest thing is I think it's really important to be a well-educated person, right? Just being well-educated in the world makes the world a better place, and I'm a big proponent on education in general. So
Right.
like, if you're going to go and say, is it worth getting a bachelor's in you know video game design, I think it's important to have a well-rounded education of the world. So the things that come along with a bachelor's degree is like, civics and physics and, all that other stuff, right? That stuff is really important to being, educated, making,
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. When it comes to the art side, there are there are so many different avenues. I'm not going to say any art heroes is awesome, but
No,
places
no, of
like
course not. I
this,
mean, like that's why
no,
you're our student. You really
yeah,
cannot
oh,
say
I
that.
am
Otherwise,
absolutely
people will like just, like I didn't
100%,
really.
dude. Marlon, awesome job, man. Love the course, dude.
Okay,
And that's the
so
thing
he's
is,
here. You'll say, "Hey, Brendon."
Marlon. Um, so education, the great thing right now is that education for specifically for art is all over the place. There's so many options, right? So having an educated person is really good, but then having all of this other types of education that is accessible to you is, I mean, we are just in the renaissance of education when it comes to art right now. We just have access to so many things. There's tutorials, and there's classes,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah,
workshops,
absolutely.
and people are even getting together to do like live sketch sessions or sculpting
Yeah,
sessions and those types of things, right? So the education isn't always necessarily a straight route when it comes to the art side, right? So be an educated person, but figure out what um what style of education that you want, right? So for me, I'm a character artist, right? So I like decide what you want to do first. I think
yeah,
is well, you
yeah.
don't have to, but like get a direction, right?
But I
And,
agree. It's like it
yeah,
doesn't have to go like the straight line as kind of like previous generations
right.
or maybe even our generation, but in like different places it used to have. So like go to school, go to college, get a job,
Yeah,
retire. Like
yeah,
it's just like taking very unpredictable paths, and I think it's absolutely fine to put yourself through experiences. And also,
exactly.
like, just letting yourself also experience a variety of styles through education, because that's initially what college is supposed to give us, but not
Yeah,
all colleges actually do that. And like
yeah,
they could
yeah.
do a great job as like showing you all the opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah, art
agree.
education has definitely taken an evolution, right? And we are very fortunate right now to be able to have this at our fingertips. It's almost like the information age. It's like, oh my gosh, we have the internet now. But like for artists, like we have like all these different online courses and everything like that are people that are sharing their experience, and that is awesome. And I think the other really big thing that I always want to touch on when it comes to education is that you're never done. I'm taking. Dude, I
Yeah,
work on Avengers. Like I'm a lead character artist, and I'm still taking courses. right? I'm taking Marlon's course right now on likeness sculpting, and I'm learning a ton because you can always learn from other people, right? It's not about like, oh, I know textbook page 74B and it says all of these words and I can recite that in a test. It's not that. It's taking other people's knowledge and being able to, take that in and apply it yourself. So never stop learning.
Absolutely. But also the technology is evolving as we speak, and there's always like new tools and the new way they work with each other and new pipelines. So I think it's like it's a given. It's like we're in it forever. Like if
it's a life,
actually,
man.
yeah, it's a life. Just like, set a budget and set time for yourself to study. I agree. It's just like it's never ending. It's true. Yeah.
And that was something that, like, in the early 3D art world, when it really, video games started getting really big and the industry was really blowing up, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it still happens, but a lot of people become consumed and they kind of let it rule their life, and they start not paying attention to the other things in their life. And it's really important to make sure that you make time for other things in your life, like being in shape and eating well and taking breaks. I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing for me was like, hey, I need to push and they need to push, and like I got a deadline coming up, or like I want to do this thing and I'm gonna stay up until 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm gonna pull an all-nighter, and like, if you step back and look at, if you push yourself past your mental limits, the quality of the decisions that you make are not as good as if you are well rested. So it's not about how much time you spend on something. It's about how good are the decisions that you're making when you're working on this project. So the more rest you have, the better you make decisions, the less time you have to spend on it. Like,
absolutely.
Rest.
Yeah. So speaking of rest and the balance, we have somebody here who's asking about, the way you feel the remote work is going, and if it's here to stay, or if 2021 will be different from 2020. What's your take, and what's Crystal dynamic is like just at the moment? Like, are you guys still all work from home?
We March of last year, we all went 100% work from home, just to be safe and keep everybody safe and healthy. So we had to adapt really quickly to how to do that, and Zoom and Slack and all these communication tools become like this lifeline of productivity. So I actually think, especially from a lead aspect where you have to be in communication with people more often than when you're just
then you're just like an artist.
It's better. It's
really
better, man.
Okay.
I can say, oh look, hey, look, we need to solve this issue. I need my animator, I need my tech artist, I need the art director, and I need the production director on the line, like, so we can solve this. Just throw an invite out there and just be like, hey, look, guys, we got to talk about this thing. And then, in 5 minutes, you could be talking to these people and making
right. So you don't need to be walking in.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, where's Joe? Oh, where's anybody seen Joe? It's always Joe, man. It's always Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's always Joe.
You're out there.
Yeah. It's probably the same Joe that you've been a jerk to.
Yep. So I think looking forward to what like 2021 is going to be like, and like how do we come out of this, and what does the industry look like, and what does hiring look like, and what does day-to-day work look like? I think it's the biggest thing is just to be safe, and make the right decisions for what your situation is, what your family is, what your health and that kind of stuff. But what I've seen is studios are very much open to being flexible. I see this too. Yeah, it's very nice because I mean, we are very, very fortunate in our industry that the pandemic has actually helped us in our industry to show that studios can be more flexible when it comes to can you work remote? Can you be more productive or as productive, not necessarily in the studio, which is great for us because it gives us as artists way more opportunities, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I've got a couple of job offers from in London. And I'm like, there was no way that I'm like, I'm not gonna move to London. I
Yep.
mean, that'd be
Yep.
cool, but I'm not gonna move my whole family. But they're like, yeah, you just work remote. I'm like, oh, yeah, suddenly the world is my oyster, you know? So I think, uh, it's a travesty that we've had to go through this, but we're very, very fortunate in this
Yeah.
industry that we're able to capitalize on some of this stuff.
So a follow-up question is like, do you see everyone actually going back when the pandemic is over? I mean, like, I'm not sure when the pandemic is over, like, but
Yeah,
anyway, like, do you
it's
think it's like gonna go back to like the old or yeah?
I think there's a very strong possibility that eventually we'll get back to how it was, but there will be some kind of transition time
Mhm.
between maybe for the next couple of years or next 5 years. Who knows? Maybe maybe there's a wave two of who knows at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is that the studios are starting to trying to define what that means and being flexible with saying some people work from home, some people work remote, some people are in studio, but they also are going to try to respect the people who want to work in studio, because there's a lot of people that want to get out of their house. I'm a kind of person that I enjoy my house. I'm a hermit when it comes to art and
Yeah.
stuff, but I also enjoy being in a studio, and I think that once the health issues are
Over.
not as
Yeah.
bad,
Yeah.
they'll start opening those things up so that people that work better or want to be in studio have that option. So it's an interesting
Absolutely.
time.
I'm hearing a lot actually of about hybrid work models
Hmm.
when it's flexible and you have an opportunity. The companies probably are not keeping the offices that are as huge as they are, but like basically you can have a meeting in the office or work several days a week, and then you can work from home. So this is something that I'm hearing a lot, because also like what the pandemic did is just change the way
Hmm.
the communication is set up. So basically now everyone can do that, like
Yeah,
can work from home. So
yeah.
this is really nice.
I think
Yeah.
just in general, we're the nature of our work, especially in the video game industry, is that we're very adaptive, right?
Yeah.
We have problems and we solve them. We just got to figure out how to do it. And then this is just another technical issue that we have to work around, right? It's just
Yeah.
another like, oh hey, we got a ticket for working from
Yeah.
home. Let's do it.
Yeah, typical problem solving. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, Brendon, as we're wrapping up, I'm going to ask you one technical question that we have here, and then we have the traditional like questionnaire where you're
sure.
allowed like a few words per question. But I'm not going to skip the technical question because
Okay.
like probably the poor person has been struggling with this for a long time. So, how often do studios use UDIMs for their characters? I can't find a clear way on how many UV sheets on
Mhm.
average for a realistic character, or if the UDIM workflow is used as much as it seems. Okay,
Sure.
let's get this
I
covered.
got it. I got it. So UDIMs are typically not used in the video game industry, mostly because
Shocker.
the power of UDIMs. Yeah, I know, right? The power of UDIMs is that you can have 20, 30 different UV sheets, and then you can pack all of your texel density into each one of those UV sheets, right? So like it could be like one little like screw has
Yeah,
like a full 2K sheet, right? And then you can
yeah,
pack a lot of detail in there. Games don't need that much, like in some high res characters you may only have depending on your material pipeline, you may only have 2 or 3 UV sheets, right? So that you don't use UDIMs for that. You just use a different material application.
That's it. Sorted. You
Yeah.
don't need that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about. I think maybe next generation we may start to get into UDIMs, or at least look at it and say, hey, look, is that something? But the problem with games is that you have draw calls, right? So like every single one of those UDIM squares has like 4 different textures at least that you're calling in. So like the engine has to say, okay, for this square, I got to pull a 2K normal map, I got to pull a 2K diffuse map, a roughness map, a metalness map, a this map, a that map, a this map for every single one of those. And then all of a sudden your engine is saying, now because you have 20 different UDIMs, now I'm pulling 500 textures, right? And that's going to kill your engine. So that's one of the big reasons why we don't use UDIMs at the moment. But
you passed you passed the test. Thanks, Brendon.
I've been practicing for that one forever. Yeah,
for the past 10 years.
Kiko, thank you for the coming in and asking me that one. I studied for that one for a while.
I know, I sent her. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was
don't worry.
Set up at all.
It's been coordinated. Okay, so and now I'm moving on to my questions since since you covered the previous one. Very good. Okay, and I see that some more people are really happy about the UDIMs.
Yes. So don't worry about UDIMs right now.
Yeah, nobody forget about UDIMs. Have a good night's sleep tonight.
But that's specifically for game, like VFX and movie industry, like that. They use UDIMs a lot because they're not. That's pre-rendered stuff, and it doesn't. The real-time calculation isn't taken into effect. So.
Yeah. All right. So, are you ready? I'm ready when you are. I'm going to shoot you 10 questions, and you're allowed a few sentences. Well, I mean, one sentence per sentence. Right. Yes? Okay.
Let's go.
Ready? Okay, let's get it going. So, what's your number one tip for combating distractions when working from home?
I have a what do you call it? A formula that I use. I don't have it on my monitor right now, but I usually have it. It's 2 words. It's wait, what is it? I don't have it up anymore. It's dedication is greater than inspiration.
I love that.
Be dedicated and use that dedication, and don't worry about being inspired. Like, inspiration is great when it happens, but you cannot rely on inspiration. You have to be dedicated. So make sure that you practice.
Thank you for saying this. I love that. What's your favorite tradition or holiday?
I have a sweet tooth, so I gotta say Easter. Easter's great, man. My kids will go around and just go and pick up candy and stuff. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get that one. Daddy tax. Easter's great. So
yeah. What's your favorite way to get in some exercise?
Oh, standing desk, actually. So if you can, and you're working from home and you're late night and all of that, get yourself a standing desk if you can afford it. It works amazingly. I'm at a standing desk now, and I'll sit here, be working, and then you get distracted, but there's not, you can still do squats. So
also
standing desk and stand.
We're spending I think about 150 calories per 8-hour day if we're just working from a standing desk. I just recently did a research on that. So
really?
Yeah. I was I'm actually shopping for one. So so yeah.
Let me know. I got some suggestions. I did some research. So reach out to me afterwards.
Awesome. So what's your most used emoji?
Oh, it's the I think it's called alt rock, but it's like the
this one.
That one. Okay. People at work are like, oh, there's Brendon using his alt rock.
So, what's your source of inspiration?
I think there's a couple. For me, it's my family and my daughters and my wife. Really, just showing that I can accomplish something when I put my heart to it, and it's not a defined thing. It's something that I define, that is my dream, that keeps me going, that is kind of the direction that I go, and I'm able to achieve things based on what I dream. So showing, to my family and kids and stuff that, you can, if you want to do it, we have the opportunity in the world to go and do it. It's just you. Right.
That is awesome. Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It was actually from Anthony Jones. Anthony Jones is he runs a mentorship. He was a concept artist. He's Robot Pencil, and I did a lot of early art tutorials with him and like mentorships and stuff when I was getting back into the industry. And there was one thing that he said, it's not verbatim, but the idea is like that. Use when you get a no, when somebody says no to you, use that as fuel for your fire to get yeses. That's the thing. Like I still get no's. People say, nah. But like you take that and you say, okay, it's not me. This is an opportunity for me to overcome something, right? And you say, I'm going to use that as fuel for my fire to prove that I can do it. That has got me gone many times. I actually, it's a fun little fact is that when I was before I got into the industry, a lot of people say like, well, how many applications did you have to put in, or like how many times did people say no? I kept count. It was a lot. It was like 80. I got 80 no's before I got a yes. You just got to keep going. Use those no's as fuel for your fire.
I think this is really helpful. Like even just like a little piece of stats is really helpful. And I'm sure actually Martin will agree with you. I think you got like also like several hundred of those no's.
A lot.
You see, eventually it hurts, but it works out eventually if you're persistent enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's how many times you have to fail before you succeed, right?
Well, all the time.
Even just in when you make a piece of art, right? When you make a piece of art, 10 different ways how not to do it. Yeah. Like you fail so that you can succeed, and you have to use those no's and use those failures to your advantage and push past it and use it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you celebrate little victories?
How do I celebrate little victories? I think giving myself mental breaks is when I get a victory, because I wouldn't say it consumes me, but I would say that like it's like art is something that's always on my mind. It's always on my shoulders, and it's like I always want to get better, and I always want to, I'm like, I could, instead of watching this TV show, I should be like sculpting or something, and education. So when I get a victory, I try to make a mental note to say, just take a break.
It's like now you can
don't worry about being better.
Yeah. And finally, what's your backup career, Brendon?
Dad.
Full-time dad.
I just I don't know. That's a very good. I guess maybe graphic design or something like that. I don't really go have something to back up. Like for me, it's like I have 100% of my effort is on this goal, and I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna do it because I don't have a backup like that. And like sometimes purposefully putting yourself into those situations and you say like, I have to. It's when people go into business for themselves, right? And they're like, hey, I cannot fail this because if I do, I got nothing else, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that could be a boon to your success. So it's not having a backup, but that's not always smart.
Yeah.
So
well, there is no right and wrong because nobody knows, and we're just here experimenting and yeah, exactly, just like figuring out for ourselves. And eventually, I always think that it's not really a competition because everybody's just living their lives, and
everybody's on a different journey, man.
Exactly, everybody has a different story, so that is absolutely fine to take it your way. So yeah.
I mean, and nobody else is going to do it for you. You got to figure out your way.
Absolutely. Well, Brendon, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm stoked. We've covered so much, and and it's been like really insightful. I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Beautiful Friday night, and for you Friday day, but for me, wrapping up the day. And thanks to everyone who watched us, our friendly banter live. Thank you guys for asking your questions. And somebody even said that I'm like reminding somebody of Mary Jane from
Mary
Spider-Man.
J.
Yes, I
Yeah, I
got a
can see
compliment.
that.
Thank
I can
you.
see it. I think it's the red lipstick.
Yeah. I can do it again next time and see if I can replicate success with Mary Jane. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys, and thanks, Brendon. Again, I'm gonna end the broadcast now, and make sure you come back next time, because next Friday I'm gonna be here about the same time, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but meanwhile the world is not coming to the end completely. We're definitely gonna have another episode of our Heroes podcast. Thanks everyone, and let's play a jingle.
Yay.